I'm Simon. I'm a wedding filmmaker based in Cape Town, South Africa. And my company's name is Bach Films. And I like to create fun, laughter filled wedding films that people enjoy watching. And that's sort of my main goal at the moment, and really enjoying it so far. Whenever people see my work now, like 70% of my Instagram comments are just Wes Anderson, Wes Anderson. And it's actually quite funny because I've only seen one Wes Anderson film, and that was, I think, Fantastic Mr. Fox or something that wasn't even like filmed with real people. So it's very funny. But I think there are definitely a lot of similarities. I love using tripod shots and sort of whips and pans and static frames and wide shots. So I think there's definitely some inspiration coming from there. The first question that I tried to answer was why or how do I want my clients or my viewers to feel? And then the first thing that I started questioning was the very typical camera sway where you would just have the camera and like move slightly,
Yeah.
which is something that I did for every single shot. I couldn't unsee it in my films. Figured or realized that that was pretty much just a habit that became second nature. And I think it's really important to question these habits. Where do you find the balance between making something that the clients will sort of use as a way to keep the memories alive, and finding the balance between that and creating a very story-driven film that sort of makes sense from a filmmaking point of view?
All right. Well, Simon, thank you so much for taking the time to join me on the first episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast or show. I don't know which direction I'm going to call it yet, but besides the point, excited to have you, excited to chat and just hear your process about weddings.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jared. It's really a privilege for me to be here and very excited to talk with you. I think this is an opportunity I've been waiting for a while to just sort of share my opinions and talk to a fellow filmmaker about things that I'm passionate about. So very excited to talk with you, and yeah, really excited to get into the questions that you have prepared.
Yeah. So for people who may not have heard of you, just give us like a quick synopsis background into who Simon is.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Simon. I'm a wedding filmmaker based in Cape Town, South Africa. And my company's name is Bach Films. I know the pronunciation is something that trips many people up, and people think it's Bash Films or Back or Bach, but it's Bach. That it forms part of my surname, so that's where the name comes from. And I like to create fun, laughter filled wedding films that people enjoy watching, and that's sort of my main goal at the moment, and really enjoying it so far.
I can definitely tell whenever I watch your films that they are indeed, they're just so much fun. The word that I thought of initially when I was watching your work is just, it's magnetic. You know, like you just kind of get drawn into the couple and just the luxurious like atmosphere and scenery. It's just like, it's just everything looks so good from the colors, the light. Just there's just this vibe, there's this feeling that I really love and appreciate, and yeah, I had to have you on because I had to just dive deeper into your mind, into your process to kind of just walk through what a wedding day typically looks like for you. So, first question I'd love to just kind of kick things off is, who really inspired your work and your like filmmaking style?
Yeah, so this is actually a very difficult question to answer because I think throughout my journey I've had many different forms of inspiration and different filmmakers that I've been inspired by. But I think whenever people see my work now, like 70% of my Instagram comments are just Wes Anderson, Wes Anderson. And it's actually quite funny because I've only seen one Wes Anderson film, and that was, I think, Fantastic Mr. Fox or something that wasn't even like filmed with real people. So it's very funny. But I think there are definitely a lot
Yeah.
of similarities. I love using tripod shots and sort of whips and pans and static frames and wide shots. So I think there's definitely some inspiration coming from there. But I think when I started my wedding filmmaking journey, it was very much inspired by what was considered popular at the time. So back then, everything was in slow motion. It was very dramatic, and that's sort of how I started. And then I think from there, I sort of progressed into a bit more of an emotional style. So I would always use like very sentimental piano style tracks. And just like to name an example, I think the soundtrack from Up, I think it's called Married Life. That's like the perfect example of what I would try to go for and sort of get that sentimental style. And that was also very
Yeah.
heavily influenced by people in the wedding industry at the time. And I think from there is when I sort of reached the point where I realized that the sort of style that I'm filming and editing in is not really something that resonates with me as an individual. Because at that point in time, I was also experimenting a lot with like personal videos and stuff that I would just do for fun, just with my friends at my apartment to sort of practice filmmaking. And that's when I sort of started realizing there's this difference between like my personal style and my wedding style. And that is sort of when everything started clicking for me. So sort of I had the idea to try and merge them. And I think ever since then, things have just really been working out for me. And I think that's so important to sort of have a style that you relate to as an individual and that is sort of influenced by your personality and who you are as a person. So, having said that, once I sort of made that decision to merge the sort of personal style and the wedding style, um, I didn't really find as much inspiration in the wedding industry itself, just because I felt like it was inspired by like my personality. But there are definitely some wedding filmmakers that inspired me to sort of take the leap to sort of combine my personal style in the wedding space. So I think also when you look at the current space of wedding filmmakers, like 90% or maybe a bit less, but a very large majority of the wedding filmmakers are currently doing something that's sort of a combination of plus two films and Roma Vera. So I think there is definitely some influence there, but as soon as I sort of reached the point where I felt happy with my style, I think I sort of started branching out from other wedding filmmakers and finding inspiration in other places. So I think at the moment, if I'm sort of looking at work on Instagram or TikTok, it's mainly like commercial stuff because there's a lot of intricate tripod movements in commercial work and just stuff that you wouldn't necessarily see in wedding filmmaking. So, yeah, I think it's just to summarize, it's been a journey of finding inspiration from many different places, but I also think it's important to find inspiration from different sort of mediums, if I could put it like that. So, I'm also very inspired
Yeah.
by wedding photography and street photography, and I think that's sort of what also inspires my use of static shots because I really like the feelings that photographs convey. And I think that's sort of something that you can carry over into filmmaking with static shots. So yeah, it's been a journey of many different forms of inspiration.
Look, I'm going to tell you guys something that I feel like you need to hear, but I know is hard to accept. You got to stop trying to do everything by yourself, especially if you want to grow your business in 2026. And I'm telling you guys this because I have been in that place where I just felt stuck. I felt like I was never going to get out of this rabbit hole that I found myself in of editing day in, day out, never having enough time to work on my marketing or my social media or my website or different aspects of the business that could help me truly grow. Networking, attending events, all these different things. And outsourcing is one of those levers that can just give you time back in your day, back in your life, and alleviate a lot of that pressure that comes from editing. But the good news is I have that team that can help you do just that. And that team is Uncut Gems, the official presenting partner of How to Film Weddings. These guys are the real deal. I've been using them for over 3 years in my business, and they do exactly what they promise you they're gonna do. Save you time, kick backlog in the face, and turn your raw footage into some absolute gems. And they've been kind enough to offer you guys 60% off on your first edit. So head over to Uncut Gems, use my code HTFW at checkout so that you can kick backlog in the face and get back to growing your business in 2026. Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, obviously I can see the Wes Anderson like style for sure. Having watched some of Plus Two and like Roma Vera, I can see some distinct, like there's some characteristics for sure, but I feel like, yeah, you do still have a very like specific quality and feeling to your film that just feels very distinct to you. And I think that's important because I feel like too, when it comes to the wedding industry, it's such a weird, when you first like get started filming weddings, it's such a battle for a lot of us because we're trying to just learn the craft. So we're emulating a lot of different people. And then we do that for too long. We kind of get confused into where does us kind of fit into this? Where is our like personality in this work? Is this actually me, or is this someone else that I've been trying to copy and emulate? And so it's so important. I love that you said that, just finding like your personality within your work and infusing the personal with, weddings is, so evident. So I love that. And just like a technical tip, because I was watching, I think it was Aaron and Andrew's highlight film. And yeah, like the whip pans, like the static mixed with the handheld, I'm like, oh, this is so good. It's so like satisfying. That's like a good word to like say. Like when you're watching this, you're just like, man, it's so satisfying. It's magnetic, like I said before. And it's like, so how do you decide when to stay still, when to move the camera? Are you kind of judging that like with like emotional instinct, or just through experience with knowing different compositions? Or I'd love to hear more about that, because that's really fascinating to me watching those films.
Well, firstly, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad to hear that people find my work enjoyable. But to answer that, I think it's more of a long answer, and I'll try and take you on a journey of how how I decide that. So I think the first question to ask yourself is, what do I want my clients or my viewers to feel when they watch my work? And I think everyone should ask that to themselves. And the sort of answer that I got when I asked myself that was, I want them to feel joy and happiness and laughter. Like I want them to laugh at themselves and to not feel like they're watching something overly dramatic or too serious. So I think once you've answered that question, you should sort of use that to reevaluate everything that you're doing. Literally everything from the technical side to how you're interacting with the couples, to how you're editing, how you're coloring. And I think sort of once I knew what I wanted my clients to feel, I started doing more research into filmmaking, like how could I convey these emotions through filmmaking techniques. And I think something that sort of stood out for me, I'm not sure where this comes from, but I sort of, in terms of camera movement, I look at the subject. So if the subjects are moving, or let me rather say it like this, I sort of try and view myself as someone watching the film from the outside whilst I'm there on the day, which it sounds a bit confusing, but if, let's say, I'm filming a cocktail hour, so for those types of shots, I wouldn't necessarily move the camera at all, because I feel like the guests are standing still and the guests are sort of standing in one position, maybe looking around, but they're not like running through crowds of people there. It's mostly static. So then I would try to match that. And like during the ceremony, the guests would be seated. They wouldn't be moving at all. So I use a lot of static tripod shots for the ceremony. But then when we get to the reception and when people start dancing, I think then I sort of try and match that as well. So then my movements are very dynamic. But it really depends on the feeling, because I would also film static shots of the sort of dance floor just to create or to sort of set the scene. But I think, it's very heavily influenced by what the subjects are doing in that specific frame and how I want the viewer to feel. Because, like with static shots, it makes me feel calm and peaceful. And I think for many parts of the wedding day, that fits quite well. So, like I said, the cocktail hour, those shots would be very static. And maybe the getting ready portion, especially the establishing shots and stuff like that. So it's just sort of a case of matching the feelings that I want to convey with the appropriate filmmaking technique. But it's definitely something that you get used to. So I don't necessarily think about these things anymore. It's just sort of, I know what I want and then I just do that. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey of trying different things and realizing that maybe in the edit, this specific shot would have been better if it was more dynamic or more static. So it's a process, but yeah, just to summarize, I think the most important part is just to know the feeling that you want your films to convey.
Yeah, man, that's so good and so true and so important. And I know for me, there's a lot of things you said there that I would love to unpack, but yeah, I love that you kind of base your decisions off of whether, the subject itself, are they motivating the movement, and you're not doing so much of the camera movement. Cause that's something I can get lost in myself. I'm like, I feel like I always have to be moving. I just need to I try to tell myself, no, just slow down, dude. Just slow down. Maybe like take a step back. Let's analyze the situation. I love that you're just basing it off of so many things. And it was a trial and error process for you of finding what actually fits your taste and your style, and what's actually true to the day, that captures the feelings you want to also impart. It's so important. And yeah, it is interesting. It's hard being sometimes an educator in the space, because a lot of what we do has become second nature because we've done it so often, just the repetitions and building that creative muscle. So it's I know why I do, but it's hard to tell you why I do what I do. But you did a very good job of explaining your process and approach to camera movement and when to move, when to stay still. And yeah, I love that approach and process. I think that's super, super helpful.
Thank you so much. I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because, as I said, the first question that I tried to answer was why, or how do I want my clients or my viewers to feel? And then the first thing that I started questioning was the very typical camera sway where you would just have the camera move slightly, which is something that I did for every single shot in my films. I don't think there was a shot where I didn't have some slight form of movement. And then once I sort of realized that I couldn't unsee it in my films, and then I just figured or realized that was pretty much just a habit that became second nature. And I think it's really important to question these habits and to make sure that the things that are second nature still fit with the feelings that you're trying to convey. And I think another thing that I wanted to add was that I also try and hit three perspectives on the wedding day. So the sort of perspective of the client, not the client, the guests, the perspective of the bride, and the perspective of the groom. So also with that in mind, it affects how I would move the camera. So like I say, during the ceremony, the guests would be seated, the groom would be standing, or the bride would be standing. So there's not a lot of movement taking place. But that's sort of just how I like to approach it. I think there's many different camera moves and techniques that work very well with certain feelings. But yeah, that's sort of how I approach it.
Yeah, I love that approach, and I feel like it can be difficult especially for US weddings. I feel like they feel like such a production at times. And I feel like most weddings still, yes, across the world are somewhat of a production. But it's so interesting that you're looking for different point of views, like from the bride, from the groom, from the guests. And I think sometimes we can kind of get lost in the motions of the day, that we kind of forget that we should try to tell a story through their eyes and not just our own. So yeah, I love that you you put that into the mix. And another question I thought of, I was watching another film. Do you shoot by yourself or do you have like a second shooter with you?
So for all of my bookings that I'm taking on now, I would always have a second or even a third shooter. But for many of the videos on my Instagram page, it's been me shooting solo. So it's been very tough juggling the drone and the tripods and the
Yeah.
audio and everything. But a lot of them are actually just me
Wow.
launching the drone, keeping it up in the air, setting up 2 tripods, and then running around between them. But it's definitely something that I feel like people should do at the start. Like you learn so much from
Yeah.
audio and from being efficient with your equipment that I think it really is something that everyone should do. But now I just feel like there's too much risk, and you can gain so much by just having an additional shooter. Or if it's a bigger wedding, I would have 3 people, including me. And I feel like that is the sweet spot. Like there could be someone just taking care of the audio and the tripods, someone following the bride or the groom, and maybe someone following the guests or drone or something like that. So yeah, for the more recent stuff, it's definitely a bigger team.
I feel like everyone should know how to film a wedding by
Mm.
themselves before adding on like a second or a third, because it helps you also like kind of delegate and like where they need to be positioned so that you get the same shot, the same feeling, and that sort of thing. And usually, like for me, it's like I bring a second to some weddings just for that like peace of mind, because sometimes it's like I solo shoot a lot over here, and it is very challenging, especially when you're dealing with like 2 to sometimes 3 photographers and you're just you, and you're like, okay, now I got to communicate a little bit stronger on where my angles are going to be for the ceremony so that I can make sure that I'm really capturing this moment in just a genuine, authentic way. And having a second is kind of just that bridge that just kind of lets me breathe a little bit more. Just like, I can focus in on like getting super creative and dialed in versus trying to get everything creative. And because sometimes when your focus is split, you end up kind of losing, the like impact of a lot of those moments that could have been really strong if you had like a second or even a third. But so important, yes, so important to just know how to navigate a wedding by yourself, so that those those moments as you're navigating them, you're more equipped on like the
Yeah.
needs and everything else. So yeah, so important.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when I started using second shooters, I would literally just take some of my friends or my girlfriend to help me out. And even just that was
Yeah.
extremely useful because they could just man the tripod, or even the drone or something
Right.
or just keep an eye on things or help me carry my bags or help me just by handing me a spare battery or something like that. So it's been a journey for me, but I do like the fact that I started solo and I sort of learned how to prioritize certain shots. And I think especially for ceremonies, because the rest of the day it's fine. Like I feel like I could manage by myself, but for ceremonies it's so chaotic. So I've sort of learned how to prioritize which shots, which now helps the process a lot because now I can tell my second and third shooters exactly what I'm looking for and where they need to be and stuff like that.
I love that. I mean, when you're filming, are you like already kind of imagining the edit in your head? Do you do like a lot of pre-planning before the wedding day? Like what's kind of that process look like going into the wedding day?
So I wish that I had like a set approach, but I think it really just depends on the client. Some of them are very creatively involved, and then for them, I would create maybe a shot list or like a creative brief or something like that, or we would have a planning meeting where we could discuss things. But I think for most of my clients, I don't really have a plan before the wedding. I sort of show up to the venue without having seen the venue before, for like 90 to 95% of my weddings. And then I arrive a bit earlier just to like walk through the grounds and see where everything is located. But a lot of it is just making decisions on the fly and adapting to the situation at hand. And I think that's sort of the beauty of
Mm,
documentary filmmaking. It's a lot about just reacting to what is happening. But I do think
yeah.
there's space for planning and being well prepared. I'm not saying it's not good to prepare, um, but I think, yeah, it really just depends on the specific event. But yeah, I think heading into next season, I would like to be someone that's a bit more prepared in terms of knowing exactly where I would have my tripod set up for the ceremony or the speeches before the event actually starts. Because something I've been struggling with lately is getting sort of the info from the planners, or to just know like where are the couple going to be standing, what's the ceremony layout going to be like. I recently shot a wedding where the planners they just ignored me, and I asked them like where are the couple going
Oh
to be
no.
standing, and they just completely brushed me aside, and I never could find that out before. Um, so
Hmm.
a lot of it was just like adapting to the situation, and yeah, but I don't think that's the best approach. It's definitely something that I could be better at, or that is worth
Hmm.
looking into different approaches from my side.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, with weddings, you can do a lot of pre-planning. You really can. I mean, you can plan your entire weekend, but at the end of the day, when you get to the wedding day, a lot of times it's so unpredictable what's going to happen. Yeah, you might have like the basic rundown of like, okay, I know where people are going to be, but I don't know that, hair and makeup's going to take like 30 minutes longer than they said they would, or, we have to delay the ceremony because grandma's not here yet, or whatever it is. It's like, you run into those things, and yeah, it's hard to kind of plan for them. A lot of wedding filmmaking and making beautiful films is solving those problems day of.
Yeah.
And that's like a skill that just takes time.
Mm.
That's something that I'm still like navigating 13 years in. I've gotten a little bit better at solving like day of problems, but there's a lot of times where I'm like, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to put my lights for this. The layout just does not look anything like what I saw on the diagram the planner sent me, or like this is so much smaller than I envisioned, or whatever it is. So when it comes to how a wedding film should look and feel, I know this question's kind of like there's a lot of opinions out there when it comes to how a wedding film should look, how it should feel, how it should be edited, how it should be structured. I'd love to hear your opinion on this. Like, what's your view on how a wedding film should ultimately look and feel?
So I completely agree with you that there's so many different takes on this. And I have very strong opinions. So I feel like the way that I like to approach it is the correct way. But at the same time, I know that that's not necessarily the case. It's just my sort of taste coming through. But it really does depend on the clients, because like there are couples that want to remember their
Mm,
wedding day exactly as it happened. And then there are couples that want like a very dramatic, almost movie trailer like vibe to their videos. So there's definitely no one size fits all. But when it comes to my specific taste and approach, I think, like I said earlier, I really want my clients to feel joy, and I want them to. I mean, there can be tears, but it has to be tears of joy instead of like emotional tears. And
mm,
I think that's sort of
yeah.
the main thing that I try to focus on, the main area that I try to hit. So um, there's no specific structure that I use for like narrative films. There is maybe like a brief or a very I don't know how to exactly say this, but I always have like a very short, almost highlight section of my films, and then once that's done, it's sort of a preview of what the film is going to be like, and then I take it back and start from a like chronological point of view, and then I work the wedding day or the wedding weekend or whatever it is through in a more chronological way. Um, and yeah, I just don't think there's a specific right answer to this because every single wedding is different and every couple is different. So in my work, I also try and take that into account. Sometimes couples tell me they want a specific thing, and then on the wedding, it's actually the complete opposite of what they told you, or they maybe said they want like a very energetic video, but then on the day they're just so like laid back and mellow, and then you can't really do what they're asking. So it really does depend on the vibe of the day. And I think in my approach, I try to stay true to that. So if there's a very
Mm-hmm.
specific element or specific vibe, I do try to have that in the film. But yeah, it's also it's very difficult because at the like on the one hand, I try and view myself as an artist that gets hired for my creative process and for my style and for my taste. But on the other hand, I'm like, aren't we just service providers providing a service and sort of bringing the couple's vision to life? So it's always this battle between what exactly to go for. But yeah, so there's no specific answer that I could give you of what I think a wedding film should look like. But again, yeah, just saying what I've said earlier, it's once you answer the question of what do I want my clients to feel, then I think things just sort of flow from there, if that makes sense.
That makes complete sense. It's like we have this like existential crisis in like in the world of wedding filmmaking because yeah, it's like the battle that we constantly face. It's like does is am I like an artist here or am I just a service provider? Like who am I becoming through this? Like what is my business really meant to be doing here? Like it's just that deep reflection though that I feel like really separates a lot of people from the rest and just and kind of merging the two in a just a very methodical way and manner because it is like it's equal parts, right? Like yes, you are hired for your creative process and the way that you capture the world and life and moments and but it's also yeah, you're providing a service. You're because of your art, that service that you're providing is really what's going to transcend, right? It's like what's going to create that feeling of both like how they view it, how they perceive you, and all of those things really matter. And I think that was a beautiful answer because it is so nuanced. It's everyone has their thoughts, and I feel like that's the way to look at it because it is about the couple at the end of the day. It's about what they want, and it's also hard. I feel like couples they see stuff on social media, and so they're just like, "Ooh, that's what I want. I want the fun, the vibrancy, the very like high upbeat energy." But then you get to the dance floor at the end of the night, and no one's dancing. So you're like, "Well, that's good. That might be a little tricky." But it's also too just like not manufacturing something that doesn't exist, like but just like being true to the day, being true to the tone, the mood, the atmosphere, the feelings, because that's what's gonna really just when they watch their film, they're gonna have that, okay, this is us. Like this is what actually happened. This is like who we are to our core. It's nothing forced or manufactured. And there's some, couples out there that of course they want the larger than life approach, and that's totally fine too. That's why it is such a nuanced answer, and like the wedding industry itself is just it's so diverse, which is great. And I love just looking at all the different films and trying to unpack the process. It's like we have a lot of similarities. We run into a lot of the same obstacles, but at the end of the day, the output, the product itself is meant to be something that's truly bespoke and genuine for the person, for the individuals. And yeah, I love that answer. And I feel like most people in the industry share that sentiment, but a lot of us especially in the early years or just even in the later years, we can kind of just get kind of too caught up in ourselves a little bit, where we want to just protect the art over the service or the couple's experience. It's like, I don't know. That's where you kind of get into some murky territory. But no, I love your approach. I think that's great.
Thank you. And I think something that I've also been, I almost want to say struggling with lately has been, where do you find the balance between making something that the clients will sort of use as a way to keep the memories alive, and finding the balance between that and creating a very story driven film that sort of makes sense from a filmmaking point of view. Like, I've had shots of like 2 minutes of just the bride and her grandpa just having the most sweet sentimental moment ever. And like, if I'm, let's say I'm 80 years old and I'm looking back at my wedding film, I feel like those are the most important shots, the shots that you actually want to see and sort of have as a keepsake. So yeah, that's something that I've been struggling with. Like, how do you balance creating a film that works and where the flow is good, and how do you sort of do that whilst also including all the very important moments that people actually want to look back on? Because I think something that I've been hearing a lot is that people don't necessarily watch their wedding films as much after their weddings, which is very sad to me because I'm very passionate about wedding films and we put so much work and effort into creating them. So I think it's really important to find that balance, and it's something that I haven't figured out yet. Um, but I mean, there's many different ways of approaching it. I think just having separate deliverables and sort of being upfront about what you'll be delivering in your different deliverables is a good way to go about it. But still, at the same time, it can be very hard to find that balance.
Yeah, it's so true. And I feel like, I mean, this digital age that we live in doesn't make it any easier because, we all have our squirrel brains, our attention spans are so short. And, there's also so much information that's thrown at us like so often. But I think, yeah, I agree with your sentiment. I mean, it makes me sad that like there's a lot of couples out there that, they probably watch their wedding film like, I don't know, once every 5 years or whatever it is. And it's like, how can we change that? How can we make the wedding film the thing that they want to consume the most because it brings them the most amount of joy, aside from all the controversy online that's just constantly fueling people's eyes and minds and just like causing the opposite of joy a lot of the times. It's like wedding films should be that, that ultimate like feel good film, where that's just the film you want to watch when you got the Sunday blues, or you just like you're not feeling your best, or you just need to pick me up. You want to hear your grandma or grandpa. You want to see your dad when he sees you for the first time, just having a complete, just utter, just breakdown because his little girl is like getting married, or, whatever the moment is. It's like, yeah, those are the moments that really make life so, so precious. And yeah, I'm with you. I think we're on our way to making the wedding film, one of those things that is something that should be consumed more over, especially photography. And not saying that not to diminish the art of photography, because I know that's like a whole nother world too. And there's some amazing photographers out there that can just do things that just blow me away, and that still capture the feeling, even if it's not a moving image, So, but yeah, I think, video, especially over the last 10 years, has come such a long way, and we still have such a longer way to go, in my opinion. But just to kind of wrap things up here, I mean, you've been absolutely incredible. Just all the wisdom you've shared. This has been such a great, insightful episode. I appreciate it. And just to give that one last little bit of wisdom, like if you're just like a beginner, like what would just be a couple things you'd want to just tell younger Simon, going into like filming weddings? Like what's some things you'd want to tell yourself not to stress too much over, or whatever it is?
I think the biggest lesson that I've learned is that your personality dictates so much, and it really affects your end product and how the film is going to look like at the end. That is sort of a lesson that I learned this past season working with other filmmakers and photographers, and just seeing how they interact with the couples and how they sort of draw out those very special moments. So it's not like they're creating the moments, but it's their personality that sort of allowed them to make the couples feel a certain way, that sort of gave them the safe space to maybe say things that they will cherish in their wedding films for years to come. So I think once I sort of figured out that a lot of the top filmmakers and photographers are top filmmakers and photographers because they have the personalities to go with that, everything started clicking for me. I think
Mm.
I'm not saying that you need a specific type of personality to be a good photographer or filmmaker, but I think it's really important to focus on your soft skills. So just making sure that you're always kind and you're always making people feel comfortable and you read the room. Like, you don't ask couples to do things that you know they won't want to be doing, because to come back to the previous point, we are still serving them on their wedding day. It's not like the day is about us. So I think just, yeah, the soft skills, the people skills, interacting with guests, with the couples, it's just something that gets overlooked too much, I think. So if I was sort of giving advice to myself starting out, I would say to focus more on the people and less on the technical stuff. Um, and also to not
Mm.
approach wedding filmmaking like you're a videographer. I know there's some like controversy around the terms and stuff like that, but I feel like there are so many different facets to filmmaking that people overlook in weddings. Because I think many people actually start out their filmmaking journey in the wedding industry. So then there's a lot of stuff that gets overlooked.
Yeah.
So I would say don't be too focused on wedding filmmaking. Sort of try and improve your skills as a filmmaker first, and then as a wedding filmmaker second. So that's another thing that I think would have helped me a lot in the start. Um, and yeah, I think that's pretty much it. I don't have any like big revelations that would rock someone's world, but those are really things that I think would have sped up my journey quite a bit. Um, so yeah, just be a kind human, and it also really helps with other vendor referrals and just making sure that everyone has a good time on the day. So I think that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned.
So many sound bites from this episode. You're just giving all the wisdom. I love it. If for anybody who is listening that wants to like check out some of your work and just get inspired, where can they find you?
So I think Instagram would be the best place. I'm looking into different
Okay.
mediums at the moment, but Instagram would be the first place that I would post anything. So my Instagram is bach.films. It's bach.films. And yeah, I try to post most of my recent work on there. So yeah, I think that's the best place.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Simon, again for taking the time to talk more about your process. And yeah, this was a killer first episode of the How to Film Weddings podcast, the next chapter. So I appreciate you on and just for being amazing. This was great.
Thank you so much, Jared. It's been so much fun, and I'm sort of leaving this with more questions than sort of what I had coming into the episode. So there's lots of stuff to think about, and just really appreciate your insights as well, and being open to talking with me. It's really been really fun.